All right, welcome. I am Angela Timberlake. I am the Vice President of Elevate Women with JAX USA, a division of the Jacksonville Chamber. And our vision is to make Northeast Florida a place where women can thrive, both personally and professionally. As a community, we must ensure women have the same opportunities to advance in their careers to the highest level of leadership, whether that's in executive roles, on corporate boards, in political office, or even in business ownership. When we do this, Northeast Florida becomes a destination where our top talent thrive, which means in our business, in our economy, in our community thrive, which is a win-win situation. However, the reality is women face so many barriers to achieve the highest level. So Elevate Women's goal is to minimize and hopefully eliminate some of those barriers to level the playing field. One of the ways we're going to do that is to learn from other successful women who are leading the way and trailblazing in our community. They can enlighten the rest of us on the challenges that they've overcome, the barriers that they've broken down, and the successes that they're seeing now. They can share with us policies, programs, things that they're working, that they see successful, that they can share with the rest of us. And above all, it's the power of possibility. If they can, you can. And so many others who think it's impossible can as well. So we're going to flip that mindset of it's complicated to it's possible. So this is our Leaders Elevating Leaders series, and I'm honored to be joined by this well-known, well-respected leader in our business and our community, Melissa Fulmore-Hardwick. She is the Vice President of IT Enterprise Applications with Acosta Sales and Marketing. She recently started her own nonprofit organization, Brown Girls in the Boardroom. She's a leader in business, in the community. She's a role model and an inspiration for so many. And when you're lucky enough to spend just 5 minutes with this powerhouse, you're in for a treat. So we're fortunate to have you leading the way here in Jacksonville, and we're honored to have you here with us today. So welcome, Melissa.
Thank you so much, Angela. Thank you for that amazing introduction. Hear you talking, I'm like, is she talking about me?
Absolutely.
Great. I'm happy to be here, and I'm excited about what you guys are doing here with this whole elevating people and elevating women. I think it's absolutely necessary, and I'm just humbled and honored to be a part of it.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. So I want to give you just a chance. So I just touched a little bit on who you are. So give us a little bit more about you, yourself, and a little bit about your leadership journey.
Sure. I like to start off by saying I think I was groomed for this. I grew up, I'm the youngest of 12 siblings, and I'll say mom and dad, so that's a lot of kids for one family, right? I often joke, I used to tell my dad, did we not have television? Like, what's up? And so I came from a faith-based family. Our faith has always been really important to us. And growing up, I wanted to be active and I wanted to be into a lot of things in the community, but the one thing that my dad insisted on was for us to be able to serve. And he always said, whatever you grow up doing, whatever you decide you want to do in life, whatever journey you take, you need to always have that gift. He calls it a gift of being able to be a servant. And so that's never left me. Even when I have, started my career in the various positions that I've had, I've always wanted to be, as a leader, a servant leader. And so, my mom died when I was 3 years old. My dad never remarried, 12 kids, never remarried. And so I always had older siblings. And so my older sisters kind of filled that gap. And they were the big sisters that any little girl could ever even dream of. They were those sisters. And so I could always remember going to them and saying, what should I do? How should I act? Having issues in school, I'd call them, and not my dad, because my dad was super strict. I didn't want him at the school. So I would call my sisters. And so when I think about my journey now, I go back to thinking about the role they played in my life. And when I think about, the teams that I've built along the way, I started off in accounting. I had an undergraduate degree in accounting when I went to school and worked in that space for a while, kind of transitioned over into IT. and then eventually became a tech leader. And as a tech leader and a female in technology, you know, there's so few of us. I've always looked for, and then I'm intentional about seeking out young women that may need a big sister in their life, so to speak. And so I've worked for a while. I've seen so much. I recall doing some partnerships in the community with local colleges, and the girls just not even knowing how to interview. Angela, you'd be surprised. Like, nobody said to them, you know, tone it down and wear a set of pearls, or, you know, what color should I wear? Should I wear this busy outfit? They didn't have those people in their lives, and I was fortunate to have some. So it's about paying it forward. And so I was doing this work already in the community, became a leader in the tech space that I've been in, and just I was sitting in a meeting one day, and I looked around and I said, you know what? We need more brown girls in the boardroom, right? And so I launched that for my 50th birthday this past August. And it has been the most rewarding thing ever. The participation, the community support that I've gotten, and just to see the young girls blossom, being able to experience their journey and be a part of that, leading that has been absolutely amazing for me. And so that's kind of who I am. That's what I do. I'm a 50-year-old parent of a third grader, Angela. You can relate to that, having kids kind of well into your career. And so that's my absolute pride and joy. And most of my leadership experience, believe it or not, comes from home. Jackson tells me all the time, you're not at work. You're not really the boss anymore at work. And I'm like, I am. And so I have to lead up in my own house because my little third grader keeps me on my toes.
I love it. We're always leading up, no matter where we are, right? That's great. I love it. It's such a powerful story too. And you know, you're in so many different spaces, but let's talk about the IT space. Yeah. It's not as easy as people would like to think. And so tell us a little bit about your journey there. And what do you see? What are the qualities that really helped you thrive in the IT environment?
Sure. And so I mentioned my undergrad was in finance, accounting. And so I was a user of a technology system that I became the subject matter expert for, joined an implementation team for that, representing the business. And then I found out that I kind of like this stuff, right? My personality doesn't want me sitting down, just closing the books at the end of every month, Angela. And so I'm like, all right, so this whole IT space, there was this role at the time that was being created, if you will, that became real popular about 20 years ago. And that was the business analyst role. So I didn't have to be, you know, heads down coding in a dark room, building code, but I understood the tech talk. I understood what using a system and having it configured to be able to enable, you know, business capabilities, what that really looked like. So I could kind of serve both masters, if you will. So I sat in the middle as a liaison for a very long time, communicating the business needs to IT. So I would configure the system. I would make sure that there was reporting capabilities from that aspect. And so I did really well, came a leader as a business analyst, groomed a team of Oracle business analysts, went to work for a local company here in Jacksonville for quite some time. And I grew up basically in the IT space there. So I like to say that I was a practitioner in that space to a leader in that space. And I tell you, there's not very many IT female leaders. And I think that one of the main qualities that you have to be in this role is you have to be able to have some resilience, right? I think that if you are not built for that, that you won't be successful. Another thing is you got to know how to balance risk with caution, right? So there's always this thought that we can build a system to do X, Y, and Z, but you got to be have some caution about that, because one of the things that I learned as a business analyst is, you know, we pride ourselves in the technology space on building great tools, right? Just tell us what you want, we can make it do that. But you have to caution yourself to say, okay, well, I'm building this tool for an end user, right? That's not real technically savvy. They don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And the caution is, how do I deliver this to them in a way that they think it's great? right? As IT folks, we're like, oh my God, I just built this amazing product. And you put it across the fence and the users are like, this is awful, right? And so absolutely being able to be assertive, have that pause to say, how can I put myself in the user's seat so that when I receive this, it's something that they deem valuable, right? And the other thing is, you know, I think about this all the time. You have to be assertive in this space because the men lead out, right? It's a male-dominated industry. So as a female leader in IT, you have to be assertive. And oftentimes, you know, if I've even removed myself from being a tech leader, just being a leader in general, right? You know the discrepancies that exist between I'm a female and I'm doing the same job that a male does and what that really looks like, right? And how it even really feels to a leader. And so if you're not assertive, if you don't, you're not able to find your voice in this space, you certainly won't be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well said. Now, you talked a little bit about your sisters being role models and being there for you. Women are typically not the best at seeking out role models. So tell me a little bit, how much did mentors or sponsors play in your success?
A huge role, actually. One of my most supportive, I would say, leaders was a previous CIO of mine who'd happened to be a female, a minority. And she happened to have been a CPA in that space and then turned technology. So she understood me and I understood her. She gave me so many just nuggets along the way, whether it's we're in a meeting and my body language didn't look, you know, I wasn't postured enough to be able to lead that. She would send me a text message and she was just so instrumental in grooming me to be who I am today. But I also had a male sponsor. I recall starting a job and was in that role for about 6 months, went to meet the COO and he said to me, I see so much potential in you. I'd like to sponsor you to go and get your executive MBA and we'll pay for it, right? And just him saying that gave me so much confidence, Angela, because it said he saw something in me that I really didn't even know if I saw it, right? And I had entertained going and getting my MBA and how it would, you know, potentially take my career to another level. And having a sponsor who was a male seek me out to sponsor me just meant the world to me. And I think he gave me that boost that said, hey, this is what real leadership is, and you need this to be able to help you prepare for that. And so I don't downplay mentorships and sponsorships, which are totally different, right? Sponsorships, he also made sure that I had a seat at the table, right? So he made sure, number one, I was prepared for the journey, and that when there were conversations being held that Melissa should have been in the room for, he made sure that I was a part of the conversation somehow. And so I feel like it is my responsibility to give that back, right? You talk about possibilities. I can't tell you the number of young girls that I run into that say, well, how did you do this? Well, how did you get that? And I'm like, what happened for me can totally happen for you. It's possible, right? There are a few things that I did. I made some sacrifices along the way, but who's to say that you can't be in this same seat? And I feel like it is my duty to help influence that.
That's fantastic. So, you know, we're always learning. We're constantly learning. That never stops. What would you say? What would you say are some of the blind spots? Maybe things that you weren't really prepared for that you can share with somebody else, especially going into the IT field.
You know, you think about this concept of how boys grow up and how girls grow up and how it's so different, and how boys are sometimes groomed to lead. It's natural. It's natural that when you're in a boardroom that the men are going to speak up, right? And so we hold back from that. We almost allow them to lead intentionally, and we take a back seat to that. And I learned, you know, this was totally a blind spot to me, but I learned that, Melissa, you can use your voice. Like, it's okay if you have something to say first, right? And I would go in these meetings and I would always have, you know, I would be prepared and I knew what I was going to say. And I would sit back to, number one, feel the room. And you should always know your environment, but I never wanted to speak first. And what would happen is somebody would say exactly what was thinking that I would say, and they would get all the, oh, you're amazing, you said it. And I'm like, dang on it, I was gonna say that first. And so that caught me off guard. And you know, I learned eventually that you gotta say it, right? If you're prepared, if you're well studied, like you say, you're always learning, it's okay to lead out, even as a female. And I think, Angela, sometimes, you know, our whole lives, like I said, I'm a woman of faith. And I was always taught, you know, that the man is the head, even at the house, right? And so my dad was in charge of things. He led out. And I think we take those things sometimes even into our careers and in the workplace, right? And so you don't be rude, you don't overtalk anybody, but it is okay for you to lead a conversation. That was totally a blind spot for me, right? Right, wrong, or indifferent, but it was something that I was just like, it's okay. You're prepared. You can say it. And so once I kind of accepted that within myself and knew that I wasn't being disrespectful, I wasn't being rude, but I just had something to say. And so I found my voice and was able to do that. But it was totally a blind spot for me.
That's great. Yeah, I think so many women feel like they have to have it all, right, before they even raise their hand to say, you know, I'm ready. So it's great to see that, you know, you can continue to learn, you can continue to evolve and grow and adapt as you become a leader and continue on that journey.
Absolutely.
So,
And you know, to that point, you know, we talked about mentors and sponsorships and blind spots. I will say that, you know, one of the other things that the mentor of mine, the female mentor that I had, said to me, as you become a leader in the IT space, not everybody's going to like what you build. There's going to be contention. The business is going to think they need enablement. You're going to think that you're giving it to them and they may not accept it. She turned me on to this concept of change management and actually sent me to be certified in that space, right? When we start talking about forever learning, that was by far one of the best programs that I could have experienced, I think, in my career, Angela. That coupled with some emotional intelligence, but the whole change management concept was about, you know, what I tapped into earlier. It's about how do you ensure that when you're communicating with somebody and you're delivering something, in my case, IT tools, when you're delivering it, how do you ensure that you meet the WIFM for them? And we call the WIFM what's in it for me, right? How do I ensure that when I'm delivering these tools to my CFO, right, or to a vice president in the company in the business, how do I ensure that they understand something is in it for them? It's not about my shiny new tools, right? It's not about all the digitalization that I can do, but it's about making sure that the people are first. There was a book that kind of falls in the change management realm, and it's called People First. And I read that book from time to time. I pick it up because I think that was, in fact, part of changing the game for me. And it's, if ever you realize that what you're building is for somebody and you put the people first, I think that you're destined to be successful. So
absolutely, very well said. And you know, if you approach leadership in that manner, where it's people first,
absolutely,
oh my goodness,
absolutely, we get it wrong. We oftentimes think that because I'm a leader, I can dictate and I can tell people and I can, and you stifle their creativity. I mean, you limit people in so many ways when you do that. And so I've always, you know, I take this leadership thing very, very seriously and close to my heart, right? And I am always thinking, how can I put my team first? How can I make sure that they have the tools that they need, the training that they need, the support that they need to really be able to do their job? And I think that's my first obligation as a leader, is to make sure that my people have what they need. The people first. People first.
Absolutely. So many gems already. Thank you so much. So, you know, our journeys are always so many twists and turns. So would you do anything different?
Wow. I think I have played my career relatively safe. You know, the jobs that I've gotten has been, you know, kind of the next level from where I am, right? And one of the things that I did that I thought I did, and it was the right thing, was change careers, switch from finance to technology. That was a risk for me. And so if I could do anything differently, it would be take more risks. right? Like I said, I've played it really safe. I've not really been aggressive when it came to my career. You know, I was taught girls are not out there fighting for their careers, right? Just do the right thing and be good at what you do, and great things will come. Well, that ain't always the truth, right? And so I've just been safe in that regard, thinking that, and my career has been great. I can't even say that, you know, I regret where I am today, but I will say if I had to do things differently, it would probably be to take more risks early on, and even now in my career, right? I think we get settled sometimes, you know, in our roles. But I would venture to say if I had to do something different, it would be that I would take more risks.
Yeah. Now, what has been your greatest reward? I know you have your hands in a lot of different things, but if you think back to you know, being a leader and how you're inspiring other people, what would you say is your greatest reward?
I think it would be the teams that I've been able to build and cultivate. I'm telling you, the teams end up sometimes feeling like it's a family, right? There's harmonization on the teams, and everybody respects the differences in people. And I pride myself on being able to build a good team, right? And even when I struggled, Angela, with am I going to launch this Brown Girls in the Boardroom, right? The name sounded so inclusive, and you know what were they going to say about it, you know, Melissa? And I had to go back to who I really was, right? I can help people because I know what worked for me, right? Who better to tell somebody whether they can do it, what the possibilities are, than the person that's actually lived it. And so when I think about the things as a leader that I've done that I'm so proud of and I think is rewarding, one of them would have to be launching this Brown Girls in the Boardroom and already being able to see the fruits of the labor that's been going into this, that it just does my heart good in so many ways.
Yeah, that's great to hear. You know, because I think so many of us, we're afraid. We're afraid of the additional responsibility. We're afraid of taking it away from our family and our personal life. But there's so much more. If you have the right passion, purpose, and the right position, then all of that stuff is still possible, and things happen that you don't even expect.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. And you talk about purpose and passion, you know, I would pray like, what is it that I should be doing? I know it's something different. I love my day job. I love, you know, the difference that I can make in that realm, but there's something else. When my feet hit the floor in the morning, I know, you know, that there is something else that I can do to help my community, to help create some possibilities that maybe young girls didn't even know existed for them. So it was like a burning desire, Angela, to have to lead this thing. And so I'm just excited that it's come to fruition.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, given the current environment that we're in right now, where we're challenged, how are you balancing this? How are you balancing being, you know, super mom, an amazing leader in your business, and then having the time to do your your community work? How are you balancing this?
Honestly, you know, I have to take it back to my faith, right? I'm grateful. I started journaling in the midst of this, and every morning I write down something that I'm grateful for. So it allows me to start my day not being stressed, right? Because I'm grateful for this. But the other thing is, I realize that I need to focus on progress and not perfection. I think for so long, you know, I waited to do things because I was trying to make sure it could be perfect, or it could be, you know, you need to make sure you take care of this and do. And I'm learning now that as long as you are progressing, as long as you are making a difference, as long as there's an impact, it's good, Melissa. It doesn't have to be perfect right now. And so I think the fact that I have number one, a 7-year-old that keeps, or 8-year-old that keeps me busy. So from a fitness perspective, I get out. I was telling somebody the other day, he started taking up skateboarding, right? And so as a result, I'm like, how can I keep up with that? Of course, I can ride my bike. I bought a bike, we're gonna start road cycling. And that was kind of short-lived. The bike is still in the garage, but I'll get to it. It does, I feel so much more freer and relieved when I'm riding my bike. But he is on a skateboard, so I decided I would buy me some roller skates. And I tell you, I have my music in my ear and these skateboards and all the pads, right? Looking like the uncool mom, he says. But that allows me to just stay grounded and to really keep things in perspective. I am horrible at skating. I don't look good doing it, but it makes me feel like I'm supporting my kid. He's healthy, he's happy, you know, and we're enjoying doing this thing. And so that keeps me balanced, and it keeps me from just feeling stressed, right? In a time that we're in, like you talked about, being able to, you know, maintain and make sure my family is healthy, be a leader professionally on my job, start a nonprofit. It's a lot. It's just a lot. And so I try to incorporate things that I know will take my mind off of what I have to do, the things that have to get done, and allow me to just be Melissa. Not a leader. At that time when I'm skating, I'm not a leader, right? when I'm spending time with my family, they don't really care about my titles. And so I start my day off talking about how grateful I am for those type of things. And it puts things in perspective. It really does.
I love it. I'm going to look for you guys skating somewhere. I want to see this. I'm going to see this.
You will get a chuckle out of the very sight of it. Will make you laugh, Angela, I promise.
I love it. And I'm the same way about, I love that you touched on perfectionism, because we all have it, especially women. We have a taste of it that sort of stops us in our tracks because we're trying to be perfect all the time. And so being a new mom, I learned I've got to let things go. I can't. I just can't.
Absolutely.
Now, I might not like what I'm seeing, but I gotta let it go. Because there are other things that are more important. So I love to hear that. Now, given we're going to stay on the, you know, the current climate a little bit, and we're talking about diversity everywhere. You know, this is a very crucial conversation. What do you see companies, where can companies really start to embrace having diversity of thought at the leadership level?
You know, what comes to mind initially, of course, and this is kind of broad, is foster a culture of inclusiveness, right? But what does that really look like? You know, for me, I would say create women empowered workplaces, right? That would be like the top of my list. But I think we need to unleash employees' creativity, right? And I talked a little bit about that earlier, but I wrote some notes down that I said, you know, if I had to speak about inclusive and diversity anywhere, right, in this day and time, what would that be? And, you know, I think traditional leadership really downplays creativity. They say they want it, but still leaders want to tell their employees what to do, how to do it, when to do it, right? And in the opposite of that is really what we need, right? We require creativity in the workplace. I'm not going to do it like Angela does it, but that doesn't mean that I can't get the job done. And I think leaders need to see that and just say, you know what, we're going to let people be creative. We're not going to dictate, and that'll happen. But the other thing is, I think companies need to evaluate their executive teams, right? Does it portray diversity? Does it really look like what you want your organization to be? And so I think that's really good. I think the makeup of a lot of these leadership teams is a huge signifier to the rest of the workforce. It says something to the people that work there. And I think if companies really want to solve for that, being diverse, I think they should first start at looking around the table, right? Who's on your leadership team? What does that really look like?
Absolutely agree. That is our number one mission here at Elevate Women. So I love to hear that. Now we're close to wrapping here. I want to give you a chance to talk to the next Melissa. So what advice would you give for somebody that's following in your footsteps?
Number one, I would say understand and master emotional intelligence early on. You know, one of the things that I learned as a leader is that there's some unfamiliar behaviors out there. Like people will start doing things and acting in ways that you're not prepared to deal with. And if you don't have, number one, control of your own emotions, and then be able to somehow manage other people's emotions when it comes to dealing with you, it's going to be a scary journey, right? And so one of the things that, this Brown Girls in the Boardroom mission is, the first order of business is, how do you really get these girls to understand and live inside of this emotional intelligence, right? I would say if someone had taught this to me right out of college, gosh, I can't tell you where I'd be, right? I recall walking into an organization, Angela, this is so funny. It was after I had worked for a Big Four. I was traveling, I worked for Oracle and was on the road nonstop, came to work for a company. And I'm just like, why aren't you people moving? Like nobody's moving fast enough. It's like a bunch of turtles around here. Like, what can we get anything done? And I did not mean to offend the people in the company. I was trying to give an analogy for, you're moving too slow. And oh, I can't tell you, I was, deemed from that meeting that I was an angry Black woman, that I was way too aggressive, that I said everybody couldn't do their job, they were going too slow. And I totally didn't mean that. But what I didn't have at that time was a level I ain't gonna say a high level of emotional intelligence. I had none. And so I just had to learn, how do you say what needs to be said in a way, Melissa, that number one, doesn't intimidate anybody, and encourages people to really move that agenda forward, right? And I'm not talking about manipulation. We see enough of that at the leadership level. I'm talking about purely in control of your emotions, in tune with other people's emotions, and how do you bridge the gap in the differences to push the agenda forward. And so I would certainly say that people have to get a hold of this emotional intelligence. It's not even just at work, Angela, it's in our daily lives, dealing with my neighbors, right? Especially in a time like this, we got this huge contentious election going on, right? Where the person next to you may not agree with what you agree with, right? Have enough emotional intelligence not to put 20 signs in your yard when you know it's gonna upset the neighbor next to you, right? And I'm not saying that people shouldn't do that. I'm just saying you gotta know the environment that you're in. You gotta be emotionally connected to a great outcome. And I think emotional intelligence is certainly the way to thrive going forward.
Absolutely agree. Well said. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for sharing a little bit of the inside of your success. You're an inspiration to so many. And we thank you for the contributions that you're doing in the community. And I'm so excited to continue to watch your success and how you can really evolve and put more brown girls in the boardroom. We definitely need it.
Thank you so much, Enzo. Thank you for having me. This is so important to me. I live literally to see what our future can be like. And, having a little son at later in life, it almost becomes more of a sense of urgency to see this stuff through. So I'm excited about it, and I'm excited about the great work that you guys are doing. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you for those watching. I believe we've seen the power of possibility here today. So I want to continue to invite you to join us in our series. We'll continue to do these. Stay tuned for the next guest. Until then, believe in yourself, believe in possible, and continue to elevate and inspire others. When we do that, it elevates us all. Thank you.